Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm Brian Lusk. We got a lot of things to talk about today. I do apologize for kind of keeping the pause there for just a little bit longer, but I was trying to do a little bit of research on House Resolution 6090 to try and understand its effects. So we might be coming back to that in a little bit here. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get everything else fired up on the situation in Ukraine at this point in time. So bear with me a second while I get everything put back together, and we will take a look at what's going on. Let's see. Okay. All right. So we'll start off with this bit from the Right Honorable Grant Shapps.
We have truly global reach. We own every single ocean. We can deploy around the world. And it's really interesting when because I hear your question, but look at which are the only countries who've been hitting the Houthis? Which are the only countries which were involved in defending Israel when it was under attack from Iran from outside of the region? America and Britain. Every time we're the country who steps up. So yeah, sure, I'm Defence Secretary. I could always argue we could do more, but are we capable? Absolutely. Are we willing? Yes, as demonstrated. And are we investing in the right kit? Well, that's my job to make sure that we are. We have.
And this video was provided along with a comment by the Right Honorable Grant Shapps stating, "History has proven that the world is safer when Britain stands up to bullies." And that's exactly what we've done. And that's kind of the same theme I've touched on many times in recent history here, is that bullies don't like it when somebody faces them down. You got to knock them back in order for them to realize that their bullying behavior is not acceptable in the modern world. And that's what he is expressing as well. A new round of sanctions have been imposed on Russia from the United States. In particular, the United States has accused Russians of using chemical warfare, or specifically prohibited chemical weapons. This is from the State Department. It says that the Russian army has been using chloropricrin, a tear and asphyxiating gas that was widely used during the First World War. The Ukrainians have talked about this many times. However, there are now 200 more individuals and companies that are now included on the sanctions list of the Ministry of Finance. The State Department directly imposed sanctions against another 80 companies and individuals. It includes the radiological, chemical, and biological defense troops of the Russian Ministry of Defense, as well as 2 research institutes that are allegedly related to the development of chemical and biological weapons. The BBC Russian actually put out a pretty decent summary here. The U.S. Treasury Department announced a major package of sanctions targeting Russia's military-industrial complex and chemical and biological weapons programs, as well as companies and individuals in third countries that help Russia acquire key weapons and defense resources. The United States is particularly concerned about organizations based in China, note that, and other countries that provide critical resources to Russia's military-industrial base. These sanctions are aimed at dozens of entities that helped Russia acquire desperately needed technology and equipment from abroad. And I've already mentioned those numbers there. The State Department is also imposing sanctions against additional individuals in connection with the death of opposition leader and anti-corruption activist Alexei Navalny. You'll note that just the other day, Blinken was in China saying, "You're going to stop supporting Russia or we're going to take care of this for you." And now there's sanctions imposed on effectively some companies in China, not on China itself, but dozens of companies in China and Hong Kong. In addition to that, the U.S. Senate has approved a ban on Russian uranium imports. That means that no nuclear fuel is able to be brought over from Russia anymore, and cuts off one additional source of funding for the Russian war machine. Members of the Group of 7 jointly committed to reducing dependency on Russian nuclear fuel supplies to create a, quote, diversified fuel supply chain free from Russian interference. So there's a new package of sanctions. China is getting involved, as in they're one of the targets of these sanctions. The situation continues to escalate in this area, and it's sad because it didn't have to come to this if we had responded much sooner. Moving on, there was an interesting bit of news I picked up here. We've already noted that when the U.S. is replacing or rebuilding the hardware that is being sent to Ukraine, they're doing upgrades at the same time. They're putting out the latest equipment and latest goods, and one of those things that they are doing is adding an active protection system to the M1 Bradley. Sorry, the M2 Bradley. Now, they have been testing the Iron Fist APS since 2018, and this has been apparently fully developed at this point in time. There was talk of maybe the Trophy Active Protective System being put on it. However, the latest reports are that this Iron Fist is the one that's going to be actually implemented on the Bradley. Now, I have not had a lot of time to actually research the details on how the Iron Fist works, but the indications are that they finally worked out enough of the bugs to make it worth deploying on the modern battlefield for American tanks. Pretty amazing, pretty impressive, and I'm not sure that we've done the same. I know that this system is also intended to go onto Abrams tanks. I don't know if any of our tanks have been retrofitted for them yet. So that was just another interesting aside on what's going on with the equipment coming in. Let's go ahead and move on to the news out of Ukraine itself. These videos came out of Odessa. This is a shelling of a warehouse. This one actually is the cargo department of Nova Pochta. At least 13 victims known for sure as of the time of this publication. Now, this is reportedly a warehouse where ammunition was stored. I don't have that confirmed. I've just got that from one source, but I believe it's probably accurate, at least in this case. It'd be a nice change of pace if they actually targeted something that was of military value for once. There's also an attack on Hitternik in Donetsk Oblast with 2 people killed and 6 injured. Interestingly, Ukraine's exports have now reached their pre-war levels. Ukraine exported more than 13 million tons of products totaling $3.3 billion in April, which is higher than volumes for February of 2022 before the start of the full-scale invasion. Now, it's been for security reasons. The parliament has been keeping journalists out of their session in Ukraine. They've now restored access, though they do have some security concerns continuing. So they're limiting to 30 media representatives that are allowed to stay in the building at the same time. The Education Ministry has approved the projects of the first 5 underground schools in Zaporizhia. That's what they're going to have to do in order to be able to keep these students educated and involved, is effectively build schools underground, because at least there they are relatively protected. The updates on the F-16. I keep getting reports that people are saying summer. Well, the latest report is they're going to get it shortly after Easter. Now, that's the other number I'm hearing is a couple of weeks, so possible either way. Interesting to see it at least finally coming to pass. Now, this is from Odessa. I'm going to go back to Odessa for just a moment. This is a video of a Russian missile attack from inside the building that was attacked. I'm going to back this up. You can watch it again here with me here. You see the impacts start to happen, and then, of course, the explosion as it actually directly hits the building itself. On this one, this was on a Nova Post warehouse, and that it was their sorting depot and branch that were hit by a Russian ballistic missile. They do report in this attack that there were no employees killed or injured. And this is kind of a picture of what to expect out of some of these underground schools that we were talking about just a few moments ago. That's the news out of Ukraine. Not a lot today. We got a few things, but not a lot. Let's go into Russia for a bit. Now this, I'm going to hit play on this. Music might be copyrighted, so I'm not going to play that. But this video is going to show multiple impacts of ATACMS missiles. This is a landfill that's been used for training in the for Russian forces. And the reports are more than 100 soldiers were injured or possibly killed in this attack. Total of 3 concentrations were directly targeted. At least one was a large formation, and we're looking at that type of results from it. This is all cluster munition stuff. Very effective against personnel like this, and you can see what types of damage they're going to do, at least from a very distant view. 1, 2, and then the third one was farther back. The latest defense intelligence update on the situation in Ukraine from the UK. The investigation into the Russian Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov has likely pulled in the more senior First Deputy Defense Minister Ruslan Salakov. It has been reported that Salakov has been questioned by the FSB in connection with the Ivanov case. He's described as a patron of Ivanov. He's also the number 3 in the Ministry of Defense after Shoigu and Gerasimov. A lot of long-standing connections to Shoigu himself. There's also the realistic possibility that investigations into Ivanov could also affect Russian Finance Minister Anton Siluanov, with some sources claiming that the Ministry of Defense construction agencies actually built a house for Siluanov. Corruption has long been a problem in the Russian Ministry of Defense. And they talk about a couple of examples of it. But yes, corruption continues to be an issue with the Ministry of Defense of Russia. Ukraine's military intelligence reports that Nepalese mercenaries are deserting the Russian army in droves. And that includes these Nepalese soldiers assigned to unit number 29,328 of Russia's armed forces. And they say they're deserting due to heavy losses, no payment, and commander's abuse. Another individual in Russia was arrested on suspicion of bribery. This would be the Deputy Minister of Housing and Energy. Now, note that the whole thing with Timur and that Ministry of Defense has been about real estate and construction. Also, this guy is about housing and energy, kind of directly related there. A drone strike on an oil refiner in Ryazan Oblast has took place and was caught, and the facility caught on fire. Now, we don't have further information on the actual damage caused, but it seems like they've been targeting pretty consistent places on these attacks. Occupied Horlivka in the Donetsk People's Republic came under fire, with local telegram channels writing about, they call them arrivals in the residential building and a store. One injury was reported. A drone attacked the Voronezh Neft product refinery, and that's another one I believe this was just earlier today as well. So we've got a lot of attacks on refineries going on, and a lot of the Ukrainians are making heavy use of the equipment that they can get to knock out everything they can that the Russians have. Now, this is a report by the Ukrainian intelligence on the latest numbers of missiles they believe Russia has of Zircon, Onyx, and Caliber, and X-69 missiles. Now, they report that at the end of April, the Russian army had about 40 of the hypersonic anti-ship missiles Zircon, while the production rate of these missiles is about 10 units per month. It is also reported that there's 400 of the Onyx cruise missiles with production rates of up to 10 per month. And they have 270 units of the Caliber cruise missiles with a production rate of 30 to 40 per month. And there are 45 of the X-69 guided aircraft missiles with a production rate of 1 to 3 per month. Now, understand that this is their assessment of Russia's status. This does not mean that Russia's running out of missiles and drones. It just is what they believe that Russia's able to produce at this point in time. Interesting to see, and I'd like to see the numbers. Some of the numbers wonks like to see that along the same lines. But in the end, the only thing that will determine the actual number of missiles and things like that is how many they throw at Ukraine. Now, understand, Russia's been good about getting them from Iran and North Korea, so there's every possibility that even though these numbers may be accurate for these specific missiles, there may be plenty more missiles of other types. Russia has created a display of Western military hardware in a World War II memorial in Moscow. Now, they've got quite a bit of things that they've managed to capture, and BBC kind of had somebody take a look at all the stuff here. Got an Abrams here, and they say they've got a whole line of German armor, and more, but they say more than 30 armored vehicles have been put on display. Now, if there's only 30, that's not a very big display, considering the sheer numbers of vehicle losses that we've seen so far. This is kind of the same principle as what we saw with the Ukrainians putting on that display of destroyed Russian vehicles in Kyiv. Now, just in the last few hours, we did have an additional report that Ukrainian drones attacked energy infrastructure facilities in two regions, in Kursk and Oryol. The strike was, quote, successfully repelled by air defense systems. They do report that the village of Ponyuri in Kursk is also without electricity due to, quote, debris that fell on the line. And there's a partial power outage in Galuznovsky and Sverdlovsk districts. Now we're going to jump to the international situation here real quick. Got some things there. And before I jump in there with both feet, if you've just shown up, please let me know that you're here. Give me a comment there so I can see that you've arrived. Also, feel free to ask questions and make comments. I try my best to capture them close to the time when you make them so that we can, so I can read them out loud where possible. According to the Latvian foreign minister, some of Ukraine's allies have sent weapons to Kyiv with no restrictions on strikes inside Russia. Interesting to say and interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if that is carried out to actual strikes on Russian territory. Now, we reported yesterday that Ukraine had received a Skynex air defense system. The Kyiv Independent is saying they've now received a second one. They call it a very highly accurate system that can be configured in a variety of ways depending on the threat, and it's far cheaper to lob bullets than it is to use a Patriot missile. To give you a hint as to which side Slovakia is getting on this conflict, Slovakia grants temporary protection to a man accused of running a pro-Russian propaganda network. Ukrainian-Israeli citizen Artem Marchovsky, accused by Czech authorities of running a pro-Russian propaganda network from Prague, has been granted temporary protection in neighboring Slovakia, according to the Czech news outlet Denik N. Now, this is interesting. This background is unusual by itself. Ukrainian-Israeli, pro-Russian propagandist. What a story this guy's got to have in his backstory here. Be interesting to find out what's going on there. Estonia started to regularly close the Narva 1 border crossing with Russia between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. local time. This is at least the first step in restricting access from Russia. The Polish government backs a law amending the status of Ukrainian refugees, which extends their protected status. This was an interesting one. A New York businessman pled guilty to attempting to sell drone parts to Russia despite the sanctions. They tried to sell around $250,000 worth of drone parts, in fact, to onto Russia, and was caught and brought in for, shall we say, a little bit of legal action. This one, have you noticed that when things start getting pretty bad over there in Russia, that the leadership to make sure that they don't build anything that they don't want to keep in Crimea? Lukashenko is building a luxury residence near Sochi, and he's making sure it's staying in Sochi, not over near Crimea or any of the other areas that have been recently occupied. It makes me wonder exactly what Lukashenko is thinking. Is he thinking he's going to retire in short order here, or what? Overall, that's a situation It just tells you what he thinks about the situation in Crimea. Hang on a second. I've gotten a priority text message here. Apparently, one of my kids who are at work right now managed to roll his ankle. So I might need to bail out of here at some point in the near future. But I'll try and get through the important things. He'll message me if he needs me to pick him up. So Norway is going to allocate over 600 million for Ukrainian air defense ammunition. That's the new funds will primarily support military aid to Ukraine, with a smaller portion set for civilian financial aid. See, hang on a second. I'll keep making sure that's cleared there and I can watch it. All right. Estonian authorities intend to appeal to the European Union and NATO due to Russia's alleged jamming of GPS signals, calling it a very dangerous issue. They have had to suspend flights to the Estonian city of Tartu for a month due to problems with the GPS system, and 2 flights were forced to return to Helsinki due to interference on approach. U.S. House of Representatives call on the Secretary of Defense Austin to supply more, if not all, cluster munitions that the U.S. has in stock. As Representative Joe Wilson says, we have surpluses that need to be destroyed. I know a way to destroy them, and that is to send them to the people of Ukraine. And that's kind of the international front. We're a little bit light today, and I'm not complaining because it's nice to have things kind of settle down every once in a while and not be quite so intense. That said, our less intense is not exactly less intense for Ukraine. So let's move on to the situation on the front lines. The Kharkiv region was bombed multiple times, with leaving 2 dead and 6 injured. They struck the village of Zoloshiv, Kharkiv region, with guided aerial bombs. There is a theory that if Russia was going to try to invade Kharkiv again, they could use attacks on neighboring Sumy Oblast as a way of disrupting the city's defense. The Sumy is the next region over, and it's also on the Russian border. From the Institute for the Study of War, Russian forces did not make any confirmed advances in Avdiivka area on April 30th for the first time in several days, while Ukrainian sources reported that Russian forces conducted several more attacks in the Bakhmut-Chasiv Yar direction near Avdiivka. This could indicate that they are rotating their attack to try and focus more on Chasiv Yar rather than the Ochratina area right there. So keep an eye on that. We're going to be watching that very closely to see what they do with it. Russian forces may decide to push from their salient north of Avdiivka towards the Toretsk area to complement Russian offensive operations near Chasiv Yar, which would likely require Russian forces to conduct a tactical pause to concentrate forces for such a drive. Now, I wanted to show Robotyne here for just a moment here. You can see these pictures show an absolutely blasted, wasted town with little standing above the ground and little cover for soldiers to fight in. Russia is claiming that they have captured the village of Robotyne in Zaporizhia yet again, saying that their fight over the ruins has meant that they have captured the town once more. At this point in time, I have no confirming information on this. They've reported that they've captured Robotyne so many times, I'm not even sure if they know which time they've captured it this time. Footage from the village of Vozhdevenka in Donetsk region near Ochratina in the Avdiivka direction. They state that the journalist witnessed intense Russian artillery fire on the outskirts, with the front line is just a few kilometers away. The horizon is literally burning in the background.
селище Воздвиженка. Тут же
The
фактично
village
за
of
лічені
Vozdenička,
кілометри
here the front line is
проходить
just a
лінія
few
фронту.
kilometers away.
Буквально
The
на
horizon is
фоні
literally burning in the background,
палає
he says.
горизонт. Саме
It is
звідти
from there that the
російська
Russian
армія
army is
атакує з боку
attacking,
Очеретиного,
from the direction
вже
of Otratina,
намагається
trying
пройти
to
в
pass in
бік
the direction of Pokrovsk.
Покровська. Звісно, до
Of course,
Покровська ще
Pokrovsk is
далеко,
still far away, but
але бої
active battles
тривають,
continue.
активні, і
And here
тут
the front line
лінія
is dynamic and changes very
жвава
often.
і змінюється дуже часто.
A little bit of a distant view of what's going on the front lines. Now, the deep state map had not updated as of my checks earlier today. They did finally actually update here, so we've got some advances for Russians. Oops, this switched me over to the non-English language one there. Does it every once in a while. Arkhangelska and Novo-Oleksandrivka, south of Pervomaisk and in Uruzhain. Let's go ahead and take a quick look here. It's doing it again. But this gives you an idea. This is Otratina right here. And this is I believe that is actually Vozdenička. But I'm not sure because, again, I don't know the usually I look at this map when it's in English. But I know enough to know that's Otratina right there. And this is Karmek, there it is. So we've got this area here. It looks like the Russians have managed to advance just a little bit, mostly in open areas again. And this is Orozhina. Let's see, small advance again, small open areas. Still, it means they're pushing in different areas of the front. Now that's down here on the south end. But you note that there is no changes over here near Robotina, just this one right here. And of course, up here outside of Avdiivka, small changes, but still not good for Ukraine. New geolocated footage shows that the Russians have taken control over a significant part of the southern outskirts of Orozhina. In recent days, Russia has scaled up attacks there, leading to small advances. Again, they're trying to divide up and split the Ukrainian forces as much as they can to make it so they have an advantage overall in numbers and capabilities in various parts of the area. You know, they don't want the Ukrainians to have any chance to focus their forces to stop them. All right. Now, this is from Supernova Plus. It's talking about Kharkiv. The Ukrainians are again intensifying shelling of Kharkiv, including cluster munitions. For what and why, I don't understand. The Russian state, they definitely won't be able to advance further there, and there's nowhere to advance. The Russians don't sleep either. They work hard every day with everything they have. So there's something going on in Kharkiv, some kind of intensification of the combat. No reported reasons why, but interesting to see. And that's the situation on the front lines. We're going to be really quick today. Here's the interesting extras. We're going to just roll right into it. And I've got a few things that are after the extras here that are about more world events, not directly related to Ukraine, though some have tangential reasons to do it. Let me play this video for you.
Vaga, member of the Estonian Parliament, part of the Defense and European Affairs Committee. Every day we try to find new ways possible, together with the Estonian Parliament and also with the government, to help Ukraine win this war. But still, I'm thinking, maybe I can do something more personally. Well, I can't do a lot of things, but I can ride a bike. So, well, I had an idea. So my idea is quite simple. I will ride with my bike from Tallinn to Kiev. It's approximately 1,700 kilometers. I will do this in a week. I'm fundraising together with the 69th Sniffing Brigade of NATO to get the Ukrainian army some more cars, some more drones, that they can win this war and beat terrorist Russia. my fundraising slogan is Ride for Victory. I want to show the whole Europe, the whole world, that the war is ongoing just a bike ride away. So please support this cause. Slava Ukraini.
Now, I'm not talking about the
Member of
fundraiser itself, but what kind of passion do you need to do to bicycle 1,700 kilometers? That is a long way to jump on a bicycle and go. And that indicates the type of passion he has to help out Ukraine. That's from Estonia. And I've seen a lot of passionate people that are coming from Estonia that know what it's like to be under the control of Russia, and they don't like it. They do not give it positive marks, and they don't want anything to do with it. So they know how bad it is, and they don't want Ukraine to fall to the same problem again. A Russian serviceman who is worried about Ukrainian drones, I'm going to go ahead and mute this. He's asking for pump-action shotguns, any kind, anything that he can get, and he wants anything that his followers can provide. And basically, they're doing skeet shooting with pump-action shotguns. Hey, you know what? That's probably going to be effective, especially if you can get some decent-size bird shot or even some of the smaller buckshot potentially, though I would expect the birdshot would be more effective against most of the drones just because you're more likely to put pellets on target. That said, some of these drones are pretty big. They may not fall to birdshot. Depends on how well protected they are and how close they are. So interesting to see that they are now begging for shotguns at the front lines on the Russian side. Okay, this is one of those too cute to not share things here. The Ukrainian defender Taras found a puppy when he served in Kherson region. The dog was very naughty as a puppy, so the soldiers named her Kosiak, or Mistake. Kosiak grew up near Taras and got very attached to her human. Then Taras had to send her to a shelter because he was no longer able to care for her, but he promised they would be together again. In the video, Taras and Kosiak meet again after being apart for 3 months. Volunteers brought Kosiak to his home in Ternopil, there we go, and another puppy for company. He wasn't expecting 2 dogs, but he's happy to take them. Isn't that just sweet? I mean, really, genuinely. Now I'm going to finish off with the Ukraine portion with this information from Inform Napalm. And I'm going to summarize it very quickly here, and that is that every time there's been something that's been called a game changer that would change the war, it's been given in just small enough drips that the Russians are able to basically be inoculated to their effects. There's not enough sent all at once for the Ukrainians to make the most of it. And therefore, as he says, they squeeze by the teaspoon, as if inoculating the Russian army with its own systems and weapons, giving plenty of time for adaptation. Actually, that is why neither the F-16 planes nor any other weapon, which will first be announced for a long time and then squeezed out by the teaspoon, will not be able to become a game changer until the West itself changes its strategy not to play tricks, but to give firstly a sufficient number of modern weapons and not to tell the Russians the time and quantity of their deliveries. And that's everything about Ukraine. I've got some other news items I want to touch on, but if you are only here for Ukraine, absolutely appreciate you being here, but I'm going to continue on to some of the other world news. In particular, you might be interested in these protests that are going on in Georgia. The Georgian police have arrested 63 demonstrators during a violent crackdown on anti-government protesters who gathered in opposition on April 30th to the controversial foreign agents law. Now, the country of Georgia is really in turmoil right now. These protests have continued for days. They're about 23 days, I think, now. And you can see here that the law enforcement... Whoa! That is loud. The law enforcement is using water cannons. They're using pepper spray. They're using everything they can to try and disperse these crowds. The protesters, though, keep coming back. They continue returning, and they're not stopping this time. They may get dispersed. They may get arrested. But even after all that, they come back to tell the authorities in Georgia that they want nothing to do with Russia. Now, the Georgian government has stated that they are not using rubber bullets or any other type of projectiles in this type of engagement. And yet you can see here this man has been injured heavily. He was shot with a rubber bullet, despite the fact that the Georgian authorities said they're not using them. This is where they say they didn't use rubber bullets to disperse the protesters. In fact, they refuse to disperse and continue to storm Parliament. They're even breaking the closed-circuit television cameras to prevent themselves from being watched and monitored as they work. Now, this case, it looks like he's just blocking. Okay, there we go. He might just have been blocking him with paint or something, but now he's gone to actually destroying the cameras themselves. Having worked on camera systems like this, it's not that hard to knock them out of commission like this. Even if they're working, they're pointing at the ground now. They're not going to show what they need for these types of things. It'll be easy enough with a pair of wire cutters to make it so they didn't work at all. The Georgian Ministry of Internal Affairs states that after the deputies were withdrawn from the Parliament building, the police completely left the territory adjacent to it. And it looks as if the police have given protesters in Tbilisi carte blanche, although only yesterday the rally ended in a brutal crackdown using pepper spray and water cannons. Now, this is reported as of noon today. Demonstrators have filled the entire territory in front of Parliament, the main Rustaveli Avenue in the city, as well as the surrounding streets. Opposition representatives are calling on protesters to begin a non-violent march through the city streets. The protests are caused by the Georgian analog of the Russian law on foreign agents, which the Parliament passed in this second reading today. So the law itself has apparently been passed, but the people are still demonstrating and chanting. Here they are chanting, "Glory to Georgia and glory to Ukraine," according to the text here. Loud, rambunctious crowds here, but you can see that it is a peaceful protest, waving flags, demonstrating, and showing that they do not want a thing to do with Russia. And that's what's going on in Georgia over there. It's been pretty crazy. There's some other news I want to touch on as well. There is now an official push to remove Speaker Mike Johnson from the U.S. House. This is being championed by Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene and supported by Representative Thomas Massey. They state that they will bring this petition to the floor next week. So expect that to be happening shortly here. I have a variety of comments on this. For one thing, we have mentioned yesterday that the Democrats have already said that any such petition will fail because they intend to table the motion. A lot of factors that are going on right here. And that is, unfortunately, at this point in time, what bipartisanship is getting you when you're part of the U.S. Congress. The vocal minority here is definitely aggressively pursuing anybody who doesn't stick to their agenda for what they have. And the thing is that they have been so bad about developing those relationships to get their legislation passed that they don't know how to win. All they can do is scream and yell. Supporters of Palestine, or Hamas, and Israel clashed at the University of Los Angeles. Now, this is interesting because the police have apparently stepped back. A group of pro-Israeli demonstrators are now facing off with the pro-Hamas demonstrators, and the pro-Israeli ones outnumber the Hamas demonstrators. And the police basically just step back and are allowing them to clear out this tent city. That was as of earlier today. Now, I don't have any new updates on this, but it appears that we're at the point where the people are no longer willing to accept police protection because police are not protecting. And if you lose that trust in the police and in the authorities, people take it into their own hands. And that appears to be what's starting to happen now. The police don't want to be in the middle of that one. In Istanbul, over 140 people were detained at the May Day rally. There are demonstrations happening in various places across the world, and it does not look like things are going to get any better on the short term. This is the Chinese aircraft carrier Fujian, which left the pier to conduct the first sea trials this morning. Couple of observations right off the bat. I'm noting smoke when it's underway, which means it is conventionally powered with a probably diesel engine. It does have a flat deck and not the ramped deck that we've been seeing on various Chinese aircraft carriers and other nations as well. This indicates they believe they have enough steam power or electrical power to be able to successfully launch aircraft from the decks using their catapults. This could be a major upgrade in China's capabilities. However, the fact that they are using conventional power instead of nuclear power may indicate that they have not yet mastered the portable nature of those reactors. Not saying one way or another, or they may have just decided that it's not worth the cost to put it into a surface vessel that is likely to be destroyed early in any conflict that they would have with America. So take your pick on which way you want to look at that, but there it is. This is I wouldn't say it's an escalation. I think it is approaching something that can be looked at as near parity with capability, even if they don't have quantity that the U.S. does. Now, I mentioned this the other day, yesterday, that there was this video of these Patriot Front people all arrested, and I got that video over to Robbie Russell, author and law enforcement officer. I had him take a look at it. Now, at the time, the person that posted about it said that they did not, that this was not according to what they understood police procedure to be, that they were not watching the prisoners, etc., like that. But Robbie Russell took a closer look at this and says, whoever this person is talking about handcuffing clearly has no understanding of handcuffing or probably a large experience in law enforcement. When you detain multiple people and there is a crowd that is a potential problem, either supportive or against, you would make what's called an inner and outer cordon. It looks like they made a combination of both, as they did not have enough officers to complete the circles. One set of circles would be looking in, one side of circles would be looking out. At the end of the day, the officers had overwatch for the people they have detained and were providing a buffer area from those who were coming around the detained individuals. As for the traffic stop and the validity of things, I have no idea, but everything here looks coordinated and correct. There's even one officer to the left who is standing bladed, as in side on to both the crowd and the prisoners. So he is observing the people who are in the circle, inside the circle, and outside of it. This makes sense to me, and I do appreciate Robbie's commentary. I had to quickly move it into a format I could show online here instead, though. Thank you very much for your insights, Robbie. I appreciate it. From UCLA, fights continue through the night. Dozens injured, multiple bleeding, still zero law enforcement present. Both sides drag their wounded and fresh protesters replace them on the front. Total anarchy. This is the continuation of the anti-Israel protests. It's getting insane out there. Now understand that a lot of this is agitated. It is some of these are of course students just doing their thing, but most of these people are from outside of the college itself. From all the reports I'm seeing, somewhere between 60 and 70% are not even supposed to be on the property. And that's the type of agitation and paid protester rent-a-mobs that we're starting to see coming into the United States. But I do want to mention something that's the opposite end. See these young men right here? These young men removed the Palestinian flag and then rehoisted the U.S. flag at UNC Chapel Hill. Some people will say these are just frat boys. They might say they're a bunch of young white men. But they protected the flag. People were pelting these young men as they worked to get the flag back up, showing the ultimate respect for our nation and for our nation's colors. While I often look at the younger generations and say, boy, are we in trouble, then every once in a while I get to look at my own kids or these kids here. And I say, you know what? There are good things coming. There's going to be a strong generation. Maybe not the whole generation. In fact, I'd probably contend that much of the generation will not be strong. But there are strong, faithful individuals coming up. And they'll be the ones that are going to be doing the heavy lifting here. The ones that'll protect the flag when it's needed. I have one last item that I want to quickly address, and that is House Resolution 6090. This is getting the rounds here, and this is the bill itself here. House Resolution 6090 is basically defining anti-Semitism in association with Title VI, or basically the civil rights protections. The thing is that this then turns around and defines anti-Semitism using an external source, the Human Rights something or other, HRA, Human Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. They take their definition entirely and use it without any modification. That may be, in fact, a fine definition. I'm not even going to address that. What I am addressing, though, is that it puts our laws in the hands of an outside organization. Because all they'd have to do to change how that law works is change their definition. Because this directly puts that information, whatever they say, into our laws. In addition, the way this is written tends to be problematic from a First Amendment perspective. I do not think it will pass constitutional muster. Therefore, I expect there will be court challenges to House Resolution 6090. It's already passed the House, as I understand, and should be going to the Senate. It was bipartisan and strongly so. But I'm concerned about the implications. I'm going to leave a link to the text here for you to take a look at your leisure right here in the comments. And that is everything for today. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate you here. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. On that note, if you enjoyed today's video or appreciated my commentary, hit me with that old thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. And I hope to see you on the next video as well. You have a great rest of your day.